The session is being recorded. Okay, great. So we're going to open it up just to some discussion. So I think one of the broad questions and something that we all have in mind is, we've had some great conversation. We've talked about a lot of different things. So I'm curious at this point, what everyone's perspective in terms of, walking away from this particular workshop. What's the low-hanging fruit for steps that are actionable, right? Actions that we can take after this, like, now that we've had this collective experience, what's the first thing that you feel like you can do or that we can do together in order to take a step forward in the right direction?
Emmanuel, if I can make just a couple of comments. So in the breakout that I was in, we focused on exactly this question. So what would be the next steps? And we discussed this question along two axes. So let me just make very brief comments about these two specific axes. One was what, for instance, NSF could do to help this community. And of course, it is up to NSF to decide what to do. But I think some of the comments that were made were of the following type, that for this interdisciplinary community to blossom and also have an impact, people, I think, found that it's needed to have efforts that have mechanisms that incorporate stakeholders, incorporate government agencies, incorporate industries into a specific effort. So two examples that perhaps are a bit closer to what we had in mind. One is the AI Institute effort at NSF that has these types of mechanisms in place. And another was an example from many years ago, the supercomputing centers that were essentially used as the springboard of activity that then sustained quite a lot of subsequent research, and people were able to interact with these types of centers without being a member of the proposing team that established the center. An additional comment that was that in addition to these larger center institute type of efforts, it is still important to maintain a mechanism for smaller teams to be able to be funded, because you don't want necessarily to concentrate the resources in one single location or in two single locations and in very large but concentrated teams, and to build a community and particularly allow more junior faculty and researchers to be part of that community, then this smaller scope type of proposals and efforts would be needed. The second topic that we discussed was to what extent there are maybe community building activities that would be helpful. So special issues of established journals were mentioned as one way of helping generate papers that are focused on pandemic preparedness and predictions. And the other was organizing a conference or organizing a workshop on a recurring basis, maybe once a year, once every 2 years. Another idea was organizing summits like this workshop, where you bring different communities together, but instead of being a one-off type of exercise like this set of workshops was, that would be more of a recurring activity where you have an opportunity to bring different people together, maybe with some technical sessions, but also with some panels and sessions that help bring different communities together.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any reactions, any thoughts?
Yes, those things sound wonderful. We should do them.
Fantastic, fantastic. Great, great, great. I want to open up the original question as well for anyone else who has any additional thoughts regarding next steps or action items. It could be along either of those two axes that were described, or even in an extension or something beyond as well. If any of you have thoughts on even individually next steps that you feel you can take moving forward from this workshop, please feel free. Is everyone all talked out after the breakout sessions?
All right, so maybe maybe I can invite people, maybe we can turn it a little bit, so everyone feel free to shut this down, especially like co-organizers and Emmanuel, especially like if this is if I say this and you're like, oh no, then, but it does seem like all of us, our energy level is pretty low. We've contributed a bunch of these conversations in the last session. Maybe we could pull back a little bit from what we should be doing and just focus more immediately on literally the next step of, maybe we can use, like, we are the faithful few who are still on this call. Clearly we're a bit engaged in this idea. Maybe what we could do is a little bit of internal matchmaking right now of who wants to work on the next small thing, but with some of the other folks here. What can we do? And nobody feel, there's no pressure. Like if you're not ready, okay, you staying here is not like, oh God, drop off the call or I'll be given homework. Like that's not the plan. But seriously, there's probably some reason we're all still, I mean, the co-organizers and the facilitators and the NSF folks, we're all stuck, but the rest of you are being awesome and you're still here, presumably because something about this is still intriguing. Maybe we should, instead of the big picture, which is what we were talking about in the last breakout, now we could actually ask sort of those little concrete, like, does anyone want to do a thing on Thursday that does this?
I think that's a great question. If you're still here by choice, I mean, that's I'm just joking. We all are. But please, we'd love to hear from you.
I put something in the chat. Is there an email list of some type so that people who are here can continue collaborating or reaching out? Or, I mean, not everybody has to be on it if they don't want to, obviously, but I feel like that would be useful.
So one thing we definitely are going to follow up with you guys and do is that there's going to be a follow-up survey coming out from this. And one of the questions will be, can we publicly identify you on a community website as one of the people who wants to be part of this group going forwards? And so if so, there's a carrot, therefore, to sending back that form. If you don't check that, we can't really include you. But if you do check that, then hopefully we can really build a community from this group and have that come together through ongoing conversations. And so, yeah, so everyone send back your surveys and click the little, like, yes, I want to be publicly identified as a member of this group. And we will, then we can all talk to each other really easily, hopefully.
If I may add to that, if you could also ask for 3 or 4 words that identify your area of interest. Okay, so this goes back to the question we discussed in our group, right? Of trying to, and you asked it now also, that oh, let's team up people. It would be great to team up, except we don't know necessarily what other people's interests are, and expertise.
I'm going to thank you, Jose. Thank you so much. And I'm going to be somewhat snarky, but only in aid of getting people to send back our survey. Many of you received a pre-conference invitation to a survey that had those keywords and did not fill it out. Notice how then it's harder for us to find out what you do. So the post survey, thank you, Jose. Thank you so much for pointing out. Yes, you should fill that out. Thank you, all of us. Not just you, Jose, but yes, all of us.
I see. The question was already asked. I'm sorry then.
No worries. Thank you. It's actually, it's really awesome to have reinforced that question was useful, because there is a part where you're like, we asked it, no one answered, and I think it's probably just useless. So, but that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Michel Boufadel. I'm guessing you hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, so this workshop was really, nice. And, as I mentioned earlier, I learned lots of things, but I wonder if there could be future workshops, where people really join in as representing, a group, say, fluid mechanics or, environmental engineering. I mean, I'm mentioning my areas, or for example, larger scale modeling, like SIR modeling. The reason I'm saying that because, the word, for example, multi-scale modeling, I think it has different meaning, and so if I want to make a plug for what I do, I mean, I feel like, as an environmental engineer and doing environmental fluid mechanics, we deal with things from, say, the micron up to wherever, the meter scale. And I feel like computer scientists, they go at a much larger scale, and microbiologists, they go, of course, at a smaller scale. So I was hoping in this workshop, I learned about this bridge of scale, but I was in a different session. So maybe someone could also summarize that discussion, or not summarize it for me, but could someone comment on that? Like how did we learn about dealing with multi-scale? Is it also that we need different expertise at different scales, or we just said, oh, let's do multi-scale?
Okay, I can respond to that just quickly in two different ways. One is to say that all of the results from the workshop are going to be collated, analyzed, and a proceedings report will be developed, as well as we'll do our best to make all of the raw data available to everyone as well. And I'll also note that the prior PIP workshop that took place on Monday and Tuesday also had an explicit session that focused on multi-scale investigation as well. And so I think that there will be many more answers to your question within the next few weeks as we have an opportunity to analyze all the data that was collected, and then to be able to present that in a way that's digestible to everyone. So that's not necessarily a direct address of what happened in the multi-scale conversation in this workshop, because I also was not in that group, but I know that there's a lot of information to help to answer that question, even beyond the conversation that took place today.
I mean, just a comment, because to me, when we start by saying interdisciplinary first, I feel that that's not, I mean, again, I'm paraphrasing here, but my point is, if we start from the problem and then we realize that we do need interdisciplinary teams. And I think that, that's why I feel like, because in many of the sessions, they say, what is preventing people from getting out of their zone of comfort? And I think it is really, if the problem is posed in a way that you need different expertise, then they have to get out of their zone of comfort.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Okay, and so the question is still open for others who are still here. Why?
So I have a question that may be not very well thought out, but I have a question. So wouldn't it be easier, rather than trying to figure out where we can come together, for each one of us to figure out what can we contribute? What is the entity that you would produce as a result of your work? And then to take a look at that and see, oh, this could play with what I can do. Rather than saying, oh, I do this, that's very abstract and vague. I want to know exactly what you can produce in this relationship of, to preventing pandemics. So I don't know, maybe that's a stupid idea, but in the end, I would feel that that's easier for me to handle.
Well, so what if we do both? What if in the survey, we both do things like identifying keywords, but also maybe just have separately identifying skills or a concrete thing we're interested in producing. And then we really can just, then with the luxury of time, that is when marriage problems can be applied to data. Would people be willing to do both of those things in a survey? Awesome. I see one person saying yes, and I'm going to extrapolate from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good idea also in terms of the sort of non-scientific but labor-intensive things that have come out. Like, do you want to do a conference? Do you want, like, click yes if you're interested in being signed up for that, is I think a useful gauge of interest for those things. Because if no one's interested, it's a solved problem. And if a bunch of people are, then it's clearly something we need.
In our meeting, our breakout session, the second one yesterday. So I was in Yanni's group 4, and we had at the end of the session, we saw a spreadsheet of challenges, and we got to vote. So I was thinking maybe, a follow-up could be a list of challenges identified or interesting research topics. And maybe people could, also check boxes. I'm interested in, if there is a follow-up on this particular research challenge, I'm interested in participating, something like that.
So by the way, that information will not go away. So we will have access to that information, and to the extent that we can, we will try to capture it in some way and summarize it.
Yeah, I thought the results from the voting for that were actually really interesting for a couple of those questions.
I kind of feel like a next good step would be like, what if NSF or somewhere hosted weekly Zoom lounges where there was a different, topic each week, and people from all disciplines and all walks of life could come and just chat and get to know each other while, focusing on a specific topic. Because it seems like a lot of the problem is people from different disciplines, they want to work with others, but they don't know how to make that first step. They don't know, how do I, reach out to that group of mathematicians over there? And I keep saying it's all about just talking to people. And once you know someone, then they could connect you to someone, and they connect you to someone. And it just seems like if there was a regular place that people could go to engage in the conversations, the getting to know while working on a problem thing, it would bridge a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the last breakout session that I was in definitely started to feel like a science happy hour, and I enjoyed that and feel like I would enjoy that more often. So I would upvote that comment.
Just say, go ahead.
No, it was a silly comment. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, maybe a conference is a way of accomplishing that goal, but anything that is on a weekly basis, I think many of us don't have time to meet our students on a weekly basis. So I'm not sure how well that is going to work out.
Well, but I like, so I had exactly the same gut reaction, Yanis. I saw weekly, or I heard Sarah say weekly, and I just sort of felt everything in my soul contract. But I like the idea of having a regular place where we could drift in and out. And as long as the low attendance or low consistency in attendance doesn't signal low interest in the community, maybe that idea of kind of an informal happy hour could work as long as we get minimal buy-in. But balancing that frequency is probably.
Yeah, I did not mean that every single person should come every week. The idea of having it be weekly is because different people have different schedules, have different times, and sometimes some people will come and sometimes somebody might drop in once and come back, a month later. It was just having that space open to do it, not that it needed to be, guided or anyway.
But I think it's valuable to sort of assert culturally that that's acceptable, and that, yeah, if you don't come for 3 weeks, you didn't kick yourself out of the clubhouse. It's okay, you can come back.
So something, because I work at a relatively new center here at the University of Oklahoma, but we used to run workshops where, it was mostly to introduce people to funding opportunities, but it was also a research matchmaking event where we would send out, and as a condition for participating, you had to complete a 1-slide PowerPoint, and it would just be what your research background is, why you're interested in this topic, and what kind of collaboration you're looking for. And we give somebody 30 seconds to talk about it, then we go on to the next person. So maybe creating a short little, video speed dating for research kind of video where everybody has like a 30-second blurb, edit them all together, and just we can watch through and be like, oh, I want to work with Dr. Bromberg or Dr. Pfefferman. Sorry, you're the first people on the name queue. And we could combine that with the Slack channel so that it's an easy way to keep track of this.
As a follow-up, I've worked with a program within the National Academy of Sciences for years and ran these regular science speed dating events. If you have never attended them, by the way, they're really phenomenal. So so there's some good prior art in that particular space and a format for doing things like that well.
There's a mention of Slack in the chat, and I don't know how many people like. I started using Slack very a lot since the pandemic, so I'm all for Slack. I think it's a great way to have a community and keep in touch and organize projects and such. But I don't know. I know there are so many ways of communicating that it's overwhelming at this point.
Not to do too much of a shameless plug, but one of the things we really do want to do at Nimbus going forward is have these kind of Rolodex of people saying like, oh, I'm either on the mathematical side or the biological side, and I'm looking for collaborators on these questions. And so I'm going to shamelessly piggyback on this. And if you have ideas for how we should do this for pandemics, that is within the scope of mathematical biology. Please also come talk to me after this meeting about what Nimbus, the center, can do to help support this. So because the local goal for this is good recommendations for NSF, but also we get to be the community that builds this. And we have some really great structures NSF has helped us build. We have this synthesis center because of NSF. We should leverage those, and like Nimbus is the one I can offer, but also I know some of the other centers would be really interested in doing this. I lived at Dymax for long enough that I'm absolutely sure that if we wanted mathematicians and computer scientists to partner with us on something more math and computer science, like Dymax would be all over this. There are other centers also about pandemic emergence, about mathematical biology. We should leverage that infrastructure, but we should come to them and say, them now as me for one of them, here's what we need, build it for us.
So not to throw sand in the gears, but who would be maintaining this? Because I have like 8 Slack channels that I'm supposed to be maintaining, and it can get very, very taxing.
So I think that's exactly what I mean by the institutes can do this. Or if that's a thing that would, like, if the answer from the community is what we need is a Slack channel, find us a moderator and maintain it. Or I'm not a moderator, but you like curator, whatever the word is for, I don't know, I'm old.
Manager.
Okay, fine. Right, whatever the appropriate word is for whatever the platform that we say is going to be the most useful for us. That's what I mean by have a concrete request and come and say, here's what this will take. And it really shouldn't fall to one benevolent researcher or even worse, one benevolent researcher's lab.
So I would second that or third it, I guess. I don't know where we are in the scheme of things. If it was possible, as you just suggested, Nina, to reach out to the other large groups that are also doing this. So not just this little group, but I feel like to some extent that's I keep saying that in this context is there are lots of other things going on right now. And if we could use this as a mechanism to integrate with that. And again, if it's a weekly fireside chat at, everybody has a glass of sherry or whatever it is, and you can show up the weeks that you can, that could still be, I would say that would be a useful thing, or at least you could try. And it's possible, so I'll finish by saying there's an institute over in Cambridge, England called the Isaac Newton Institute that some of the folks around here probably are familiar with. So they've had a pandemic program going since last March, basically. And it started out as a long workshop, which identified themes to work on, broke up into groups of people that would then work on those themes. And it's many months later and they are still doing their tea times and their meetings. And so I know that that's possible. That's, you know, England is a different place. It's a lot smaller. This is, you know, at the top of the food chain. There are all sorts of reasons why it might work, but it is a mechanism that is kind of nice.
Fantastic. Great. I want to provide just another opportunity to anyone else who may have some additional remarks. The microphone is open. We have just a few more minutes though. So if you'd like to say anything, I want to give anyone an opportunity just to weigh in before we.
Yeah, and one thing I think also that came up a couple of times that I think is a practical thing, not for us, this one's in NSF's department, but I think was noted, is that if you really want this to, NSF to build in this, I think some kinds of cooperative funding with NIH are going to be critical for success, both because of the cost of the projects and the scope, but also because of the domain. And it was pointed out on various occasions, I thought quite eloquently, that the difficulty of getting folks that are entirely in the NIH sphere to even show up at events, because in fact, you know, we're all tethered, well, like it or not, we're all tethered to our funders. Okay, we're not supposed to admit that in public, but here I am on the recording saying it. We all know it's true. So if we really want to get people out of that enormous side of the health sphere, you know, we need the NIH component. But also, as has been noted, NIH is just not institutionally able to provide the kinds of rapid and forward-looking response that are required for things like this. Hey, if NIH, if you're listening, why don't you change your ways? But given that they're not, I think that those ventures are going to be critical. NSF does have successful joint NIH funding streams, like with DMS, for instance, the mathematical biology cooperation has worked well. There are mechanisms for doing that. That's not something that's at our pay grade. We can't do that. But that's something NSF could concretely do that would not only help sustain work in this area, but also in related problem areas. So that's something I think has come up several times in the meeting. There's some concrete stuff that could be pursued at NSF, and I think that would be really helpful for the community and for this problem in general.
I just want to bring back up something which was pointed out yesterday, which is there's a whole lot of people who, you know, in a perfect world would have come to this meeting, but were unable to because they were completely overwhelmed because of the current pandemic. Not that the people here aren't also completely overwhelmed and working very hard. And I really want to give a shout out to the organizers for putting this together. But hopefully, unless these variants come up and totally bite us all in the ass, hopefully this fall there'll be more availability from a broader set of people, including doing kind of post facto analyses of how our response worked and how it could be better next time. So, you know, anyway.
Thank you.
I could just piggyback off the point. A couple of things come to mind from the energy world, from my side of things. So there's an organization called Mission Innovation, which is a global initiative working to accelerate clean energy innovation, right? So basically was formed to try to address the issue of clean energy. Maybe something could be formed within this world as well. Could be a national thing, or maybe something that crosses borders, because we did see how, you know, this pandemic is not just a national thing, just like climate change. So maybe look at Mission Innovation. There's something called Clean Energy Ministerial, which is very similar, that was formed kind of on a global scale across ministries across the world. And then the third thing I'll mention is there's a concept of operating agents, right? So that the point is for each of you not to be busy, you know, focusing on the Slack channel and managing it and everything. You get a third party, and their job is to basically move things forward. And so International Energy Agency, other types of places or organizations have operating agents that basically will do that kind of a job to let all of you focus on the research and to make sure things move forward. So a few light bulbs that popped in my head.
Anyone else have some closing thoughts before we turn things over to the co-organizers?
Yeah, I'll just hop on here. I've been like lurking in the background this whole meeting and joining when I can. So have really found it interesting. My name is Sue Vanderwood. I'm from Colorado State University. I just wanted to follow on with that comment about people not being able to attend, because I think from my perspective, this pandemic has really impacted early career faculty, and there's lots of information about how it's disproportionately affected women and people from underrepresented backgrounds. And I don't know how to make up for that in these kind of initiatives, but it's certainly something, if we can accommodate for that, it really goes thematically with all the things we've been touching on, is like, how do you include people who are disproportionately impacted by this and are scientists, and it would have a lot to bring to the table.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Closing thoughts? Okay, great. In that case, I'd like to turn things back over to our co-organizers to provide some concluding remarks from their perspective before we go ahead and wrap things up. Nina, I always appreciate that. Are you all gonna make me go first? Look.
All right. So of course, I am the most incredible cheerleader for this group. I'm so grateful for each of you, especially those of us who are still here. Thank you all for sticking it out. But seriously, everyone throughout the entire scope of this meeting, for however long people were able to contribute. I think from my perspective, it's been really useful to get out of the normal bubbles. And so each of us is already interdisciplinary. Each of us is already thinking about pandemic preparedness in some way. But this group is new to me, and hopefully to many of you also. And that changes the moving out of my normal echo chambers changes how I think about my own work and how I am aware of yours. And that makes me a better scientist. And it hopefully will also make me a better influencer of policy. And so I'm so grateful to all of you. I feel as though I have made definitely new friends here and hopefully new collaborators. And I hope that that's a sentiment that you all share, not just with a few, but with this community. And we're going to be really excited to use this opportunity we had from NSF, whom I will thank in a second, to bring everyone together as a launching point. This is, in my mind, very much the beginning of this community and not the end of it. And it is complementary to a bunch of our existing communities, but I think it has a lot of distinct perspective to offer. And it's not something I would have thought to do or try and seek out. So thank you all so much for making that just personally wonderful for me, and then also as an organizer. You guys all did all the things, thank you. But then also I know that I'm not alone in wanting to thank NSF and Energetics for the actual running of this, and then NSF also for the thinking of it. Katerina and Mitra especially for being rocks, and also Goli, oh my God, you are amazing. Those of you who haven't met Goli, I mean, she's fantastic. Goli, say hi to everyone.
Hi everyone, thank you, Nina, for the shout out. It's really been a pleasure, not only just getting everybody's, hearing everybody's point of view and the discussions, but today and yesterday, but also the planning process. You guys have made it such a, all the brilliance that's come to the table from the organizers, from Energetics and all of the team at the NSF. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful 2 days. Thank you.
So thank you so much. And I want to also invite, of course, Katerina and Mitra to jump back in without preempting the rest of my co-organizers. So I don't know order of operations for that. We weren't so good that we worked out this part, but like my overwhelming thing right now is just gratitude, and also seriously an offer of service. I am here as my own independent scientist, but I'm also about to be someone who can provide an institute's worth of support. That doesn't mean I have money, but it means I have energy and I have connection and I have community, and we should leverage that. So please, all of you, don't hesitate to let me know when having an institute's support would help. And I can try and find money if the answer is we need money, but I can try and find people and energy and thought also. and infrastructure is not nothing. So please help me be useful to us as a community to keep this going.
Yes, thank you so much, Nina. I do want to just give a brief opportunity to all of the co-organizers as well. Dr. Bororba, if you have any remarks.
Yeah, I second everything that Nina said, and I want to thank her for her leadership and really pulling all this together with a tiny bit of our help, or at least my help. And it was a beautiful event, very well run. And thank you for the whole team, and Emmanuel in particular. We had interacted at the breakout sessions, and for all the participants, for all the great ideas, comments, thinking out of the box, criticism, because that's really important. And so I also want to really, extend what Nina had mentioned, that this is very much a process in the making, and we will be compiling all these comments and trying to really have the important messages and themes and ideas work out. So if you are, like most of us, a few days from now thinking, oh, I should have really added that point in that discussion, because now I see connections, please make sure to send that, because we will not be writing that report over the weekend. We'll take a little bit of time. And so we will still be collecting that input. And so if you have a brilliant idea or something that you see could really help address one of the challenges, or is you think a major issue that we didn't touch on, then it's really important that you send us that in the next, let's say, a few weeks to month even, for us to integrate that in what we're going to synthesize. So it was really valuable, and including discussions that you might have with others, sharing what you have learned or what you didn't like about this workshop, and bringing up ideas with them, and then bringing that to us so that we still include that as well, and at least consider it in our synthesis. So please stay active and continue to participate, even if we end now.
Thank you so much, and for those reminders as well. Appreciate it. Dr. Paschalaitis.
I think everything has been said. Let me just say that on behalf, I think, of all of the co-organizers, we thank particularly Nina. We stand it on her shoulders, and she has carried most of that load in terms of making this happen. Thank you.
Oh, the virtual applause. I hear it. I can hear it. And Dr. Moody, lastly.
Yeah, just thanks again to everyone, and particularly to participants and plenary speakers who, dropped everything and did this. It really is just so greatly appreciated. A lot of, as I want to second what Lydia said, is that a lot of this is going to come together in a document we're writing, and those things have histories in ways that often outlive us. So in these kind of initial framings of the way that institutes can support long-term investments in science. So I just want to reiterate and say it really is important that if there is an idea that you want emphasized that's happened in this meeting, or that hasn't gotten the focus you think it should have deserved, don't be shy letting us know. We will do our best to include it and shape it so that document reflects really the interests of this community as best as we possibly can, in a way that makes this really important issue get some purchase. So again, thanks so much to the co-authors and the co-organizers. Truly a fantastic bit. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. And just noting that we still have Doctors Basu and Dittmar with us from NSF. So if you all would like to provide any other further remarks, and we can close with you all.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone again, especially the co-organizers, Nina, Lydia, James, Yanis. You did an amazing job. I know this was a very heavy lift that we asked you to stand up on a very short time frame. Yes, you have absolutely excelled, and we thank you for that. There was great discussions, really creative contributions, lots of things that certainly I noted down that hopefully we can kind of implement and come around with, and kind of hopefully stand something up that is a little bit more of a sustained effort that goes beyond these workshops.
which is really the intention of bringing you all together and hopefully starting some connections that will translate into some fruitful future collaborations. And again, as I said many times, I really thank all the participants for their time and their thoughts. And yeah, it's very important for us to hear you, and we couldn't be standing up all of these programs if we wouldn't have that input from the community. And I don't know, Mitra, if you're still here, if you want to add some comments.
Yeah, so I echo what Katharina just said. I thank you all, the organizers, not just for this workshop, actually for the other 2 workshops that took place already and the one that is coming up in March. This is truly a interdisciplinary workshop. So that gives me lots of hope that you guys are planning to continue as a group. And I do encourage you to do that, because as I think Katharina mentioned in the morning, that we are exploring funding opportunities, and you may find it helpful to have a team of interdisciplinary researchers ready. So that is all I can say. Unfortunately, cannot say more than that, but this has been an amazing experience. We started in June, this group of 12 program directors, and I have never seen Katharina in person, actually. And I have not seen many people. Also, Goli, I think I haven't seen her in person. So, yeah. So in the beginning, of course, we also faced the same questions, same challenges that you have when you talk to other people from a different discipline. Different directorates work different ways. So we had to go through all those things. And I am very hopeful that if we can do this, you guys definitely can do this, because there is much more motivating factor that is right in front of you, right? We have been all impacted by this pandemic. Every one of us has been impacted by this pandemic, and such a opportunity we should not miss. And thank you again, all of you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone. So with that, I'd like to welcome you to enjoy an unexpected 45 minutes on a Friday. So please, maybe that means checking some missed emails. Maybe that means just going for your favorite brand of water or whatever it is that you will be drinking when this is over. But thank you so much for your participation. It's been great having all of you in the conversation, and I look forward to seeing and interacting with all of you again in the future. So thanks so much, and take care.